Today, I'm interviewing Kate Crocker, and Kate is our AI problem solver and dark patterns consultant. Kate's an Australian legal design writer, SEO copywriter, and a former lawyer. As a former lawyer turned legal design writer, Kate has mastered the art of blending complex legal concepts with a user-friendly design. Now, Kate's also an expert in dark patterns, those tricky little design tactics on the web you probably hate, and is on a mission to make websites ethical, transparent, and user-friendly. Kate's skills don't stop at legalese, though. As an AI prompt engineer, she crafts the perfect AI responses and empowers teams to shape their digital presence with clarity and accountability. Her passion for ethical design keeps our AI solutions human-centered and accessible. Kate can distill even the densest legal jargon into something your grandmother could understand, all while making it SEO-friendly. Kate, welcome to the podcast.
I'm South Australian, just like you, a former lawyer and a trained legal designer. I came across dark patterns as part of my legal design training and quickly realised it was a very important subset of legal design, not to be overlooked. And more recently, I jumped on the AI avalanche. At the beginning of 2023, really, when it became obvious it was going to fundamentally affect businesses like copywriting, which is what I was doing at that time and still do. So,
all right, I've got some questions for you, if you don't mind, Kate. The first question is, what are dark patterns? And I presume we're not talking about my paisley waistcoats.
Not your paisley waistcoats, no. No, we're talking about user interfaces. So dark patterns can appear on websites, apps, social media. So they're design tricks that are specifically aimed at manipulating you as the user to do something that you didn't intend to do. So it might be that a countdown clock was used to get you to purchase something, and as soon as you made the purchase, that clock reset and started counting down again. So the deadline to purchase was false. It could be something that you're automatically opted into when you subscribe, or a subscription that you are opted into, and then you can't find a way to unsubscribe. Or it could be something mysteriously appearing in your shopping basket that you never put in there, in the hope that you won't notice and you'll end up buying it. So all sorts of little tricks. There's a huge range of categories of dark patterns.
So then why, that sounds nefarious, and I've come across all of those myself, and it's very frustrating, I agree. Yeah. But why is it a problem?
It creates all sorts of difficulties for consumers. So it's a problem because a lot of dark patterns are designed to trick us into handing over our personal information. And as we all know, data protection is a bigger and bigger issue. We've all encountered scams online. We, in Australia, had the Optus and Medibank data breaches. So if you can remember lining up to get a new driver's licence, so all sorts of issues are now arising with our ability to protect our personal information online. So in 2023, online scams cost Australians roughly $480 million, and that figure is increasing exponentially. So it is absolutely huge. But dark patterns are also, they're not transparent, and they exploit cognitive biases such as decision fatigue or where you just choose the first thing because you don't know what else to choose. So all the patterns that your brain will just automatically want to follow to reduce your mental load when you are completely overloaded with information or choice. So you're acting in ways that you hadn't intended to. You're spending money that you didn't really think you'd be spending. Vulnerable people are particularly susceptible to exploitation with dark patterns, so children and the elderly. So we're talking about decision-making difficulties, financial loss, interference with independent decision-making, compromised privacy, and also physical effects like frustration, anxiety, and stress, which shouldn't be. So the effects of those should not be underestimated, actually. It can have quite a debilitating impact on a lot of people. Yeah.
What's the implication then with all these dark patterns for AI?
So with generative AI, the first implication is that AI is just so new and we're all sort of still learning how to use it and how to navigate it and what it means. But what is emerging is that the more we use generative AI, the bigger the risk of dark patterns, because it can easily create dark patterns and often they're very hard to detect. So you need to understand what to look for. So if you're creating something with generative AI, you need to know what dark patterns look like so you can check the output. And if you're a consumer or just a user who may hand over some personal information, then it's good to know about dark patterns so you can try and work out whether or not that's what you're dealing with.
So how do you avoid dark pattern risks when using AI?
So I think you need to sort of understand how dark patterns can emerge when you're using AI first. So what we're really talking about is risks of deep fakes. So we've all come across fake images or voices or synthetic voices. So deep fakes probably can quite easily manipulate users with false information and undermine autonomy and privacy. So the recommendation there is that you would use AI filters to detect and block the deep fakes. You'd put watermarks in or metadata in to try and make it more genuine. And you'd definitely be conducting regular reviews of how that form of AI is being used. When it comes to synthetic media, the new Google Notebook LM function that produces a podcast episode is absolutely incredible. It is, if you've not used it, I recommend you just go and have a go, because the voices sound so natural. It's not what we're used to hearing with synthetic voices, but it just goes to show how quickly that technology has improved. It's a real reminder that you have to be very much on your guard when online. Other examples are bots, of course, so the risks that bots may impersonate humans, which is also unethical. Any kind of disinformation, so you need to check that information sources are in fact from authoritative sites, and I would add in particular statistical information there. I have a lot of experience with statistics, in particular being made up on by any AI that I've been using. Haven't actually managed to iron out that little glitch yet, but I'm working on it. And that, of course, leads to hallucinations where the AI can just absolutely make up anything. So you do need to double check your output. And in fact, you do need to be mindful of how you prompt the AI as well, so that it's not just given complete reign of the internet You actually want it to be very focused about what it's looking at online. So a few of the concerns are that AI can analyse huge amounts of consumer data very, very quickly, and so it can personalise dark patterns rapidly even while you're online doing something. So it can sort of alter algorithms and harvest your data. It can store and analyze information about your profile as you're going around browsing online. So it is a bit like the Wild West out there with AI.
Here in Australia, we have some data privacy laws, perhaps better than some other countries, but certainly worse than other countries. We are sort of semi-protected, aren't we? But only semi.
We're sort of in the midst of a major change at the moment major change of the privacy laws being contemplated. We were waiting for some announcements back in September, and we're still sort of waiting with bated breath to find out exactly what's going to happen. So the expectation is that dark patterns will be specifically regulated by privacy laws. At the moment, there's general regulation around collection of personal information. But, more specific laws will deal more with consent and prohibiting information collection in certain circumstances, regardless of whether a person's consented, because one of the issues with dark patterns is, of course, that your consent's not informed if you're being manipulated and not acting with authority. So we have seen in the EU the introduction of the AI Act over there, which bans AI-generated dark patterns, and those bans are going to be staged over the next couple of years, so into 2026. And it does depend on the type of activity, but it will also apply to non-EU countries who are doing business in the EU. So it does potentially also apply to some Australian businesses.
Because I write a lot, there's an interesting sort of discussion going on in the writing community at the moment, in that, on the one hand, the writing community is being asked to be transparent if it's used AI, and certainly Amazon is asking you very clearly, have you used AI for anything? And the other point is that a lot of the writers in that community are saying, no, we're not going to talk, because the public at the moment has such a bad idea about AI that we can just walk up to, Claude or ChatGPT and say, write me a novel. And, out comes a novel that, writers don't want to disclose that, or if they do, they just say, oh, look, they edited my text, but I wrote it all.
Yeah.
So, that's a balancing act, because I don't think the public's ready for writers to be honest about how they're writing stuff.
Well, yeah, I think there is a more of an umbrella issue there, which is to do with copyright, because it's not clear yet how copyright laws are going to apply to AI-generated content. So some of the recommendations are that you do identify when you have used AI, or if it's 100% human generated, for that reason, that if you do later need to enforce your copyright over something, then you can point to that as a contemporaneous statement of how you produced that content at the time. So it is a very difficult area at the moment. It's the same for copywriters. Everything's in flux. Starting to see sort of codes of ethics come out in various forms, including by copywriters disclosing with clients how they're using AI. It is an absolutely incredible brainstorming tool for copywriters. It is not generally speaking, it's not the sharpest tool for writing, but it also depends on how you prompt it and the knowledge base that you're giving it. So yeah, it's an interesting area. It's tricky times, and it's difficult for our clients as well because we're all sort of walking a tightrope at the same time. It feels like.
I mean, certainly there's a challenge with, as you say, with copywriting because, whereas we've said in the past, oh, look, it might take us 3 or 4 days to turn this around and put it in your company's voice. With, as you say, with the right, background material, with the right prompting, it can turn it around in about a minute and a half.
Yeah, well, it's the legwork. The legwork is where the gold is for copywriters. So all the things that we've had to wade through that have been so time consuming, like pulling all the information out of a brief that we can collate somehow, or pulling information together from different sources and making it something that we can make sense of so we can then write, or just simply trying to understand what the benefit is of a feature when we're writing sales copy. All those kind of things are incredible. It is an incredible tool for brainstorming, and there are different ways of doing it. So if you think laterally enough, you can actually get solutions that do seem quite creative and find little golden nuggets that you'd never considered. So,
Kate, are there any other ethical considerations when we're using AI, not just as copywriters, but just as business people? Are there ethical considerations that we should consider that we haven't talked about so far?
Yeah, so I think when it comes to things like social proof, like testimonials on websites or reviews, that kind of thing, there's a big risk of dark patterns there. It's very easy to make up a testimonial, especially if you're not giving any details about the person who's purporting to have given you the testimonial. So you need to be very careful about that kind of thing. We know that AI can very easily generate fake reviews and other forms of social proof. And even potentially using deep fakes to do that. So you need to be very careful about how you do that. I like the idea of using Google reviews, screenshots of the Google reviews, screenshots of Facebook reviews, anything like that carries quite a bit of weight to it. So use the photo of the person, say where they're from. If you can convince them to give you a video testimonial, even better. That's just about the most compelling. So those things, when it comes to exploiting cognitive biases, we're hearing a lot about dynamic pricing these days. So dynamic pricing is something that is very much driven by AI, and also dynamic inventory. So when you get those awful messages when you're on a website, it's a big thing in women's fashion websites, but saying that a person looked at this article, Beck from the Gold Coast looked at this article 5 minutes ago, that kind of thing. So, those kind of things can be AI generated, and, nudging the user towards a particular act that the business wants from the user. So, yeah, and things like data harvesting with privacy, or even manipulating you to provide consent, are really one form of manipulation, which is a big dark pattern, is just to throw a wall of data, a wall of words at you. So in order to proceed with something, you need to consent to all their terms and conditions. People give blind consent because it's written in legalese, they don't want to read it, they don't understand, but they know that if they tick the yes box, then they'll get through to the next screen. So that's a very big issue. And also I think, as I said before, the ability for AI to sort of collect data about you as you travel around the internet and just build a profile about you that can be then used in various ways. As we know, that's how scammers often target people as well.
Any last thoughts about dark patterns and AI and the risks involved?
Well, I think at the moment in Australia, we're in kind of a sweet spot with what's happening in dark patterns, because the laws we don't have specific laws against dark patterns yet. So we have general laws. We've got general consumer and privacy laws that will regulate dark patterns, but we don't have the specifics. So while the government is working that out, and we know it's coming, it's just last week the Albanese government was talking about introducing draft laws in early 2025 for opt-out subscription dark patterns and various other insipid practices. So we know these laws are coming. There are all sorts of reports and consultations going on, but right now the laws aren't specific, and so it represents an opportunity for businesses to actually take a look and work out what needs to happen, work out how to assess what strategy should be put in place, and also what needs doing straight away, what can wait. So we have the luxury of a bit of time at the moment. All that is said with the overlay of the European privacy laws and AI and digital laws, which actually may already apply to a lot of Australian businesses who attract customers or clients in the UK, or website visitors, in the EU and the UK. But those laws, with the enforcement of those laws, is tending to be a little more focused on the really big players at the moment, like the huge mega companies. That will not always be the case. So we've just got this time at the moment where we can get to work and learn more about these deceptive practices, understand more about ethical design as well. I think consumers are increasingly wanting ethical practices, ethical designs, wanting to, lead more, ethical, sustainable lives, and that is going to come across in online behaviour. So I think it is also for companies a really huge marketing advantage in embracing more ethical practices and getting rid of as many dark patterns as possible off websites.
Excellent. Well, thank you for that, Kate. We really appreciate that.
Thank you very much, Lee.
Thanks to Kate Crocker for her compelling insights into the implications of dark patterns for businesses. It will take specialist expertise and experience to guide the CEOs, entrepreneurs and senior leadership teams to navigate dark patterns for their websites and their use of AI. Drop us an email at curious@amigos.com or give us a call on 0410 642 052 to organise a suitable time for us to talk about how we will help you navigate these minefields and let us lead your organisation to new heights and new profitability without the risk of falling foul of the law. You can catch our AI in Business podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And if something you've heard here inspires you, please leave a comment on our podcast feed. Until next time we meet, take some business risks because you never know what will take off, and let us help you revolutionize your business with People First AI.